All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Fit to Fat to Fit Experience podcast. I'm your host, Drew Manning from Fit to Fat to Fit. As many of you know, my journey I did quite a while ago, 5.5 years ago, where I intentionally gained 75 pounds as a personal trainer to get a better understanding of kind of what it was like to be overweight for the first time in my life. Totally changed my perspective about health and fitness, totally changed my perspective on the industry and how I help people now. And so in my podcast, what we do is we dive in with, professionals in the sports, fitness, and nutrition industry, to talk about their philosophies, but also bring the lessons that I learned from my experience to a real world, unique perspective on health and fitness for your average person. So today's guest, you guys, is Paul Gagne. Now, many of you probably haven't heard of Paul, but let me read you off some of his remarkable resume. So he's a sports physiologist, strength and conditioning trainer, posturologist, exercise kinesiologist, and strength and conditioning consultant. So he has a background in microbiology. He's one of the very few trainers that NHL teams allow to rehab their hockey players who are injured and after they are operated on. And he's trained and consulted with many different of the world's athletes in all different types of sports, such as Michelle Wie, George St. Pierre, Michael Campbell, and a bunch of other NHL hockey players. And he definitely knows what he's talking about. In today's episode, we kind of dive into what a posturologist is, because I really didn't understand what that meant, but he talks a lot about, what your posture, looking at someone and what their posture can tell you about what type of athlete they'll be. We also get into his nutrition philosophies, and I really, really like this guy's advice on health and fitness, not just for your Olympic athletes or your elite athletes, but he makes it very applicable to your average person. So you're going to learn a lot about nutrition and exercise routines in this episode, and learn how these Olympic athletes train, but also what you can do in your everyday life to apply these lessons that he's learned from training these high-end athletes, you guys. I love his accent. He's got a cool French Canadian accent. He's a very fun guy to talk to. So I think you'll really enjoy today's episode. But before we get into today's episode, our show sponsor is Kegenix. Now, Kegenix is an exogenous ketone supplement company. They're one of maybe 4 companies that create this type of a product that basically gets your body into a state of ketosis within 60 minutes of taking it. It's backed up by science, clinical studies. It's based on the research by Dom D'Agostino, who Dr. Dom I had on the podcast a few episodes back. Definitely we'll put that one in the show notes because it's a great episode to listen to if you're interested in learning more about ketosis and the benefits of being in a state of ketosis. So back to Kegenix. Like I said, it puts you into a state of ketosis within 60 minutes, which is basically a way to hack how long it normally takes. Nutritionally, what you do is you eat a high-fat, moderate protein, low carb, very low carb type of diet. And then within a few days, you can actually get into a state of ketosis. Some people it takes 3 or 4 days. Some people it takes 1 to 2 weeks sometimes. So Kegenix makes it so much more convenient to just drink this powder drink, which tastes really good, by the way. And you drink it, and then boom, you're in a state of ketosis. You can even check your blood ketone levels to show you that it really does put you into a state of ketosis within 60 minutes of taking it, even if you had donuts and pizza, previously. That's what's so cool about it. For my followers, you guys get 15% off using my code FIT2FAT2FIT. That's with the number 2, FIT2, FAT2, FIT. You get 15% off using that discount code at Kegenix.com. Definitely go check it out. Maybe start with a 7-day supply or the 1-month supply, whatever you feel comfortable with. Check it out, and it's definitely worth trying to experience kind of what it's like to be in a state of ketosis taking this product. Very exciting stuff, and I'm a big fan of the product. I take it every single day now, and it's like no other supplement that's out there on the market. It's not a pre-workout. It's not a protein shake. It's not a meal replacement. It puts your body in a totally different metabolic state. So that's why it's like no other supplement out there. So check it out, Kegenix.com. Use code FIT2FAT2FIT. All right, you guys, let's go ahead and jump into today's episode with Paul Gagne. All right, Paul Gagne, welcome to the Fit to Fat to Fit Experience podcast. How are you doing today, man?
Very good, man. Very good.
And you're joining us from Canada?
Montreal, Canada.
Montreal. Well, thank you so much, man. We can hear you loud and clear.
Perfect. Good.
Hey, so really quick, the first question I want to dive into, because most people probably aren't familiar with this term, but what is a posturologist? Can you describe that to my followers, the basics of that?
Well, basically, we're specialists of the postural system. It's a science that's been out in France, mainly south of France and in Canada for about 40 years. Dr. Brico, an orthopedic surgeon, and also Dr. Jean-Pierre Roll, a neuroscientist, invented that system through a lot of research with their colleagues. Mainly, it was early on mainly by doctors in hospitals, and then they funded the CES. It's the International College of the Study of the Static. Basically, everything you do in postural with the postural system was measured with force plates to see the deviation caused by gravity. On Earth, we're all affected by gravity, and then if you have any abnormal solicitation or abnormal position through gravity, you're going to have problems. You're going to end up with a lot of injuries. This is why, number one reason why people stop working out after 6 to 8 weeks when they start a new program is that their postural system is not adapted yet. And with athletes, I work mainly with professional and Olympic athletes. That's the number one key to measure and also to modify. The good news is not only posturologists, we don't only measure all the criteria of normality for a postural system, but also we give exercise and techniques to modify it, to make it a lot more adequate under gravity.
Okay, so let me ask you this, because this is very interesting stuff, and I definitely believe in what you're saying. So you talk about high-end athletes. Obviously, you look them over, you look at their posture and certain movements. What about your kids? Because you have 2 kids, right?
I have one kid, but see, that's a very good question, Drew, because the earlier, the postural problems, especially now, are starting earlier than before because the kids, they don't move as much. And one of the major components of the postural system is the feet. I don't know if you're familiar with all the data, but there's an epidemic of flattening of the feet the last 30 years. Before Vietnam War, you were not allowed to be in the armed forces if you had flat feet. Actually, my dad got his life saved during World War II because he had flat feet. And in Canada, they thought we were very brave, and they used to send their soldier on the roofs in London to shoot German planes with a just regular shotgun. And within a couple of weeks, all his battalion were gone. But my dad was stuck in Montreal to do more like paperwork because he had flat feet. But now, since Vietnam War, they had to remove that thing in the armed forces in Canada and the U.S. because there's an epidemic. There's over 35 to 40% of the population who have flat feet now.
And what do you attribute that to?
Sitting down more than before, but also the running shoes. See, the companies wanted to do very well. They put artificial arches in the shoe to create support, but like any sports shoe, you're supposed to wear them when you do a sport. Like running shoes is mainly when you run. You don't wear your golf spikes or your skates or your ski boots throughout the day without consequences. But it became a fashion. Then kids very young used to wear these artificial arches. The problem is like in the body, if you support too much a tissue, it will collapse. If you remember in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, guys hitting the gym used to wear these huge weightlifting belts, but as soon as they either shovel snow or play with their kids, they used to pull out their back without the support of these big belts. Now, luckily, a lot of research told us, hey guys, don't do that because it's bad for your back and it's an artificial support. Women in the medieval time, they used to wear these corset. As soon as they removed the corset, everything hung out because the body works like that. If you support it artificially too much, it will shut down. It will let it loose. Same thing with the feet. But the problem with the feet is that nothing on earth stays up with the base of support we have. We're in average 5 times longer than our base of support, our feet. Anything in your room that is 5 times longer than the support, if you let it go, it's going to fall down. We don't fall down because the skin of the feet are very, very sensitive to pressure. Those are really our computer. This is what directs you in space. Then if you numb them with soles or too much arch support, your foot loses the ability basically to sense as a sensor. That's why in population where people, they walk bare feet a lot, I had the chance to work with a lot of sprinters. I had a clinic in Jamaica for 16 years. And in Jamaica, the Jamaicans living more near the beach or in the countryside had way better posture and balance than the same Jamaicans living in Kingston or Montego Bay wearing shoes all day. And it was basically an adaptation of like urban adaptation of the cement and also hard floors and support of the arches. Anything you support will collapse, and there's a big consequences. As we know, if you have flat feet, you could create more arches in your lower back. You're going to have more internal rotation of the knees, also at the hip, and it creates a lot of big problems, to the point, like I told you earlier, that you were not allowed to be in the armed forces if you had flat feet. They knew it would make very bad soldiers.
That's so interesting. So what are some solutions, like buying zero drop shoes, the flat shoes with no artificial arches? Is that what you're saying would be a good solution?
The key is to start very young, because if you, like I always tell people, if you have a young baby, start to brush the sole of the foot when you give them a bath. The same little brush we use for their heads, we use that under the feet to activate. Make them walk bare feet as much as they can. I mean, in Canada, it's harder because of the weather, but in the house, we even have these little cobblestone mats. Make them play in sandbox, make them walk in the grass as much as you can, and also indoor, walking with small as less support as possible. And as you get older, and also there's exercise you could do, but if your feet are already deformed because of inactivity or too much shoe support, then you need to see a good podiatrist because to correct it. But I'm talking about the real podiatrist that will put a cast, not a foam box to take a measurement. Problems in Canada and the U.S., a lot of people are making orthotics, but they are not podiatrists, doctor of the foot, and that's the big issue. Also, we have a panoply of a lot of different exercises, especially when you deal with young athletes, even teens. You could give them a lot of exercise to create more arches. One tip is just to lift your big toe up every time you squat, or every time you lunge, every time you move. By lifting the big toe, it brings the subtalar joint, who's the steering wheel of your foot, more aligned. And that's why also a lot of people, when they do Olympic weightlifting, they will buy these shoes, Olympic weightlifting shoes, because of the heel lift of 5 and 8 inches will create an artificial arch that will help to support because like as a trainer, you all witness like when someone who has valgus feet, meaning internal rotation or flat foot, when they squat, they will tend to open their feet and go on their tip of their toes. They cannot keep their heels down, and they lean excessively forward and their knees buckle in. That's the first sign of too much internal rotation. Basically, a flat foot is too much valgus. It's like a valgus foot, meaning collapse arches, level 3. And the problem is that most feet are not equal. Most people, the left and the right foot, will not flatten equally. And that's a problem. That creates a lot of rotational pivots. When someone squats, not only the knee will buckle in, but also the hips will shift and the pelvis will move, and not in the same way. And that's the danger of doing these exercises without proper guidance and creating a better posture and also a better balance at the foot.
Gotcha. Okay, so getting back to the kids, obviously getting them to run around, walk around as much as possible with bare feet. Is there anything else you could suggest for kids to help improve their posture other than that?
Well, I mean, a lot of them, bare feet will do a great job. The more outdoor they are too, if the weather permits, will help their posturals, because also another aspect of the postural system is the eyes. The muscle of your eyes are very, very sensitive, and they will help you to position yourself in space. If you're always indoor on screens or on the phone or a very short distance from your eyes, they become very lazy. People forget that our eyes are mainly an adaptation with the muscles. They were there when we hunt, when we move, also to avoid predators when we're in the wild, and we don't have that anymore. And eye coordination is getting bad now, a lot worse than it was, because kids are using too much close to their face screens. And the white light doesn't help also. It shuts down the muscle of your eyes. And that's the bad part. Playing games outdoor, being in the sun, in the snow, helps a lot the muscle and stimulate the muscle of your eyes. There's also many exercises, but this, especially in the States and Canada, you would need to see an orthoptist. A lot of time, he's a specialist of the muscle of the eyes. A lot of time, optometrists are formed as orthoptists. They're doctors of the eyes, and they will prescribe you exercise to improve your posture and also athletic performance. All my athletes, they all do extensive eye exercises.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. No, that's great, because as you're talking about this, I'm sitting here, hunched over, kind of leaning to one side. And as soon as you start talking about posture, I'm like, okay, I got no shoes on. I'm trying to stand up straight. And it's funny how when you talk about it, it's important, but it's so easy because if you've gone 30, 40 years of your life without focusing on good posture, or just starting with your feet, you don't really think about it. You've gotten to the point where you're just kind of lazy, and it just kind of becomes second nature, right?
Exactly. Yeah. What you don't use, you'll lose. Also, just sitting on a regular Swiss ball will help you a lot. Bare feet, sitting on a Swiss ball. Sometimes they have these what we call Shakti mat. They're little mat with spikes. They're very cheap. They're like a little yoga mat you could roll up. You could buy them on Amazon for about $30. And they have little mini spikes. It looks like mini golf spikes. By standing on them, even sitting at the beginning, standing on them, it's kind of annoying a bit. It kind of hurt, but after a while, you get used to it. But a lot of my clients and my athletes, when they do paperwork or they have to do stuff on their computer, or if they even want to play video games, they'll put their feet on it. It helps a lot to activate all the receptors of your feet, and it increases your balance. Also, training with when you do very low impact training, using the Vibram 5 fingers shoes, very, very good. If you couldn't separate the toes, it's the best way to improve balance. Again, don't get me wrong. Don't go sprint with these things. Don't do plyometrics or weightlifting, because I've seen people and they had fractured. They create a lot of shin splints and a lot of problems if you're not used to it. If all your life you were bare feet, there's no problem. But if you're just starting, I heard that guy from Canada, I'm going to start to jump, you'll get in trouble. Just like anything, you start with the basic, standing on one leg, eyes open, eyes closed. Try to lift each toes. Try to rotate side to side on your feet with all toes up. This is way better than any balance device, eyes open, eyes closed, than any you can invent. Until you do that, you could stand on one leg, all toes up, eyes closed. And you'll see, then you're ready to do it for the next level with movements and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's so interesting, because I remember when I moved here to Hawaii, I live on the Big Island right now, and I moved here about 7-8 months ago from Utah. And when I first moved here, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go run on the beach every morning. And I did. But the first week or two, my feet were killing me because I wasn't used to running barefoot in the sand. And it took me a good 2 or 3 weeks to adjust. And I'm like, man, I had no idea my feet were that out of shape, but it's made a big difference now,
especially if you surf. If you do a lot of surfing, it will help a lot. Surfing is one of the best exercise also for balance of the feet, because you're with the water and very unstable. Like my son was a pretty high level skateboarder, and it helps a lot. Anything that you will use, especially surfing, without any footwear, and also running on the beach. If you go back to Utah and you ski, your ski boots will feel like so easy. Skiing movement your balance will improve, and you'll feel like your feet grew. They didn't. It's just the surface, that your balance surface is bigger than it was. For me, that I work mainly with pro hockey players and skiers, it's super important, because the sport needs to close in the foot, and that's the problem. But outside of the ski hill or outside of the arena, we need to spend a lot of time working on the ankles and the foot receptors. Makes a big, big difference. for my athletes.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've been trying to get into surfing. I just haven't started yet, but I did do stand-up paddle boarding, which is just as hard. My feet are getting like a killer workout just trying to balance doing the stand-up paddle boarding. But let's shift gears here a little bit, and I want to talk about your nutrition philosophy because you've been in this industry for a long time. You've worked with a lot of professional athletes, Olympic athletes. How have you seen nutrition evolve over the past 10 to 20 years? And what was your philosophy back then with the old science, and where are you at now with kind of the newer science?
Well, I was a bit of my background. I'll be 55 years old soon, but I was on the national wrestling team for Canada and pretty high-level hockey players too. And back then was really a lot of supplements. Like I'm from that Weider era of muscle and fitness and muscle meat. Like everybody, tons of protein and tons of supplements. And with science, especially with guys like Dr. Ray Peat. Ray helped us a lot. He's a biochemist and also a biology teacher. I think it's Oregon State. And he did a lot of, there's a lot of guys like Barry Sears that wrote The Zone and many other doctors that found like what we were using was very pro-inflammation. Basically, our not only we called us posturologists, but also performance physical preparators. That's the real term, like PPT, and we like that term because in Europe, physical prep is very well known. In the U.S., it's more strength coaches, but what we do is beyond strength, is more physical prep. If you're a surfer, you're a marathon runner, you're a skier, I'm able with science to prepare you for your event. That's why I like better the performance prepper physical prep PPP term. And basically the new era is more fat now and less sugar. Using a lot of different herbs and also like turmeric and ginger to anything that will fight inflammation. Like bone broth, we use that. We go back a lot now, like we used to eat about 100, 150 years ago. Instead of eating like a piece of meat, put it with veggies, let it simmer for 5-6 hours. And you will see that on the Big Island, the traditional Hawaiian diet, they simmer stuff for years. I just came back from Japan, and everything is prepared like that, especially in the mountain. I was in Tazawako near Akita, and it's very traditional. And they cook stuff for hours. And all the research have shown when you do that, you don't need to take supplements. You have like all the minerals and the vitamins because it all interlink with the minerals of the veggies. And you don't have to consume too much meat like that. You will take the parts of the meat that they're not as good because you need a lot of collagen and cartilage like we used to eat. And this is the key. All my athletes that they follow this philosophy of a little higher good quality fat like coconut oil, grass-fed butter, mix with again no trans fatty acid. You don't want to use trans fat, very 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 bad for you, and also not too much vegetable oils. People forget that vegetable oils don't exist. It doesn't come from a vegetable. It's all from nuts or grains, but you don't have cucumber oil or you don't have tomato oil. People, it's a bad term. It's mainly seeds and nuts, and it has to be eaten in very, very, very small amount because it creates a lot of inflammation. Inflammation is the enemy for any disease, from heart disease, arterial and atherosclerosis. It's been researched now. It's not even a debate that the number one is homocysteine, C-reactive protein level in your blood will be a huge marker, way more than cholesterol, to create heart disease. And it's the biggest killer in modern world. This is what we attack. Also for me, because I work mainly with pro athletes, I want them to be able to perform and recover better. Basically, we don't use any flours because flour is really, really high. It has nothing to do with gluten, although there's some research. It's mainly most flours are pro-inflammation. And also we use mainly root vegetables for carbs, a lot of green vegetables, low glycemic index fruits when we can, and high fat, and very, very good source of protein. But again, like I said earlier, protein cooked with other things to create that synergy.
Interesting.
Of nutrients.
Yeah, I heard another talk that you were talking to someone, or an interview that you were talking with someone about the slow cooked meats and how important that is for the enzymes. Can you talk a little bit about that? And so basically, what you're saying is instead of using the microwave to cook your meat, use like a crock pot, for example. Right?
Exactly. Like it's a lot easier. And like you said, you said the key word, Drew. It's enzyme. It's not what you eat. It's what you absorb. And without proper enzymatic balance in your body, you will eat. That's why you see people, they eat like they're going to the electrical chair. It's like their last meal. And they never put on any good size, or they just look at food and they become fat. It's a bad enzymatic balance. Some people, they're always craving, they're always hungry. When you do the measurements of certain enzymes, especially their digestive enzymes, and also in the gut, all their microbiotic flora and probiotics and prebiotics is very, very low. And that's a big, big problem we have. Like in Hawaii, you will see a lot of people who eat papaya. Papaya is very good enzyme because it's papain. Pineapples, organic pineapple is bromelain. It digests 300 times its weight in protein, same as papain. And those are really good to mix with meat and protein. They're about actually the only two fruits that we like to mix, especially when you have access where you are to these fresh organic fruits that they're grown with the sun, not only in the indoor like we have here in Canada. But again, the key, you just said it, enzymatic balance. If you do that, and also not eating too much. All the researchers in the world, if there's one thing they get all along from the high carb, the low fat, the high fat, it's all calorie restriction with high quality food. In Japanese, in Okinawa, where they live very, very long, they call it hara hashibu. It means in Japanese, leaving the table about 50% full. And that's the key. People, they eat way too much for their energy expenditure. We're not lumberjacks anymore. We don't work that hard outside of the gym. And we have to be very, very careful about if we have a good balance in enzymes and a good food process, we eat organic food or homegrown. I hate the word organic because, we should not put a label on my product that I have in my garden. The companies, they should put chemically enhanced food like they did with the package of cigarette. Put these cancer lungs on it. Say the truth. It's GMO, and they have to put it on because the price will go down. And it's sad to put a label of organic on a food that it's not touched. It's not my fault if the farmer wants to make more money and he puts all these chemicals that are very, very nasty for my body and also cancer production. It's been proven now, and they should pay the price for that. The guy that in Hawaii, there's a lot of organic gardens, a lot of organic, and it's very expensive to do that, but it's worth it. You don't eat as much, and also, but they deserve not to be taxed extra to put that label on. And the other one that they cheat, they should put the label. They should have to put a label or warning on that our food is chemically or antibiotic enhanced.
I think that is super smart because it should be mainstream, the organic, the natural, or the correct way of growing your fruits and vegetables. Whereas the ones that are using pesticides and herbicides and antibiotics, those are the ones that should pay for the labeling saying chemically enhanced. Man, that's a great idea. And I love that. Let's talk a little bit about athletes versus your average Joe, because you talked a little bit about calorie restriction, and doctors, for the most part, agree with that as far as longevity, right? Living a long, healthy life, calorie restriction is the way to go. But obviously, your high-end athletes, they need to fuel their bodies. They're trying to grow muscle, become leaner, faster, stronger. Let's talk about a macronutrient breakdown for your athletes versus your average Joe that sits down all day but goes to the gym for 45 minutes.
Yeah, basically, again, like I said, to fight inflammation, you need to fight acidosis. And all my athletes, they start the day with, first of all, a lot of pure water, but also they'll take warm water with lemon as a starter. That's a daily thing. We prefer in the morning a higher protein type of breakfast to stabilize the blood sugar. Like they'll have a good egg omelet, but mainly with a lot of veggies. They could put a bit of organic meat in it, but no, very low carbs in the morning and a higher fat content with coconut oil or an avocado in it. That's a great breakfast for my athletes. Sometimes they will use smoothies, but using like gelatin. There's a lot of companies now making very good organic gelatin. Dr. Axe and Bulletproof, they make some, and many companies now, and it's pretty cheap. They use the parts of the animals that you don't want to know or eat. They put it in powder, but it's great. It's the same as I said earlier when you simmer. Basically, the new trend of having like eating the animal from the tail to the head, and like we used to do in the old days. We didn't spoil anything. We took everything from the animal, from the hoof, the skins, to make something out of it. And basically, gelatin and powder, that's what they use. It's very high in collagen, and it really absorbs. To see if a protein is effective as a supplement, if your nails and your hair grows faster than normal, it means your body absorbs it. I remember 25 years ago when I started to take the powder, gelatin powder, within a month, my nails grew so much. And even my wife, who was a real blonde before, but now she's not anymore, after 3 months, she was not that happy because she had to go to the hairdresser a lot more often to get her mesh done to her laid blonde hair. And that's a good sign. Your hair and your nails are pretty much the barometer of your body. When they're very healthy, you will see that your body is absorbing all the nutrients. Post-workout, we like to use, this is where the main key is going to have a little more carbs. You want to spike up your insulin a bit, but not too much pure sugar. I will go more with roots, vegetables, with a good source of protein, always a lot of liquid. In Canada, we're very lucky. We use a lot of maple water as a supplement. Coconut water in Hawaii will be very, very effective because you have a good source. In Canada and US, sometimes it's kind of pasteurized and it's kind of hard to get the real deal. That's why we use more maple water. Organic coffee is very good for your athletes. Helps a lot to use more fatty acids when you train. Also great for your brain, but organic only. You got the great Kona coffee. You got many brands in Hawaii. You're very fortunate to have it. We use AeroPress. We use Adio. We use different style. But as long as it's organic. The beans, like the cocoa beans, coffee beans are really heavily sprayed because it's a very expensive crop. Then all the fat, all the pesticides are in the fat. And if you like espresso coffee, then you'll get a very high dose of pesticide. But my athletes, they like 2 or 3 coffee a day, but short like espressos or AeroPress, mixed with fat. They like to mix it with a bit of butter. Or we used to use that about 30 years ago based on research in Tibet. They used to have these very dark black tea with yak butter. And it increase your brain. It helps a lot with concentration. It concentrates the caffeine also. And all the nutrients of the coffee bean helps a lot to be transported through with the fat. And this is basically, and at night, this is where a little higher carb tends to feed a little more my athletes, because a lot of time they will train in the morning, and all the research have shown for lean muscle, if you eat a lot of protein in the morning and 3/4 protein at lunch and a lot more carbs at night, but I'm not talking about pasta, I'm talking about like root vegetables and no breads, no flour, you will tend to store in a lot more muscle because of the insulin levels are more efficient in the evening to prepare you. And also higher carb will help you to sleep better, will put you to a better, helps secrete more tryptophan that will help you a lot to shut down your nervous system, especially the sympathetic system that's it's on go, 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 go. And again, water, all my athletes, they drink about 3 to 4 liters a day, but of pure H2O in between meals. I don't want my athletes to drink with meals. It's not very efficient. It becomes, we need extra cellular water, and it has to be drinking like at least half an hour before a meal. That helps a lot to hydrate all the fascia and to make all the joints very, very mobile and lubricated.
That's interesting. I've never heard of that, drinking in between meals and not at meals, but it kind of makes sense. I get what you're talking about there. And then going over to the carbs at night versus the morning, that used to be the opposite back in the day. Like, don't eat carbs past 7 p.m. because it'll turn straight to fat.
No, if you train, that's for athletes mainly, but also they did research on obesity, and they put people on high protein in the morning, kind of high protein for lunch, and pretty high carbs at night. I'm talking about not quantity, not 5 bags of potato. Again, we go back to our first. You need to eat. You need to feel your hunger. I met a Japanese researcher many years ago, and in his research, do you know when we secrete the most antioxidant in our body is when we have the growling of the stomach. It's a sign. Most people, they don't wait that their stomach growls to eat. It's almost like going to the bathroom and waiting for something happening. We have receptors in our bladder and our colon that tells us, listen, you need to go to the bathroom. But same thing in our stomach. We have enzymatic involvement and also like alerts that tells us by growling of the stomach that, hey, we need food. But if you always eat over undigested food, it putrefies. One thing I always tell my athletes and my clients, if you have gas, something is wrong. And if you need to evacuate the house, when you go to the bathroom, something is wrong. It should be that's a problem. And I see it when my athletes they eat very well for their body. I mean, their sweat almost smells nice. Everything, the body odor smells nice. When you putrefy body, you create a lot of ammonia and also sulfuride byproducts, and you smell it in the sweat and also what comes out of your body, and that's not normal.
That is interesting. That's a great first sign or test for people to be like, okay, I need to change something because it shouldn't be smelling like this, right?
No, and also after a meal, you should have energy. You should not feel like I'm going to have to go to bed. When you put gas in your car, you don't have to let it lie on the side of the road no, you have energy. Food is energy. That's why I love. I studied a lot under Ray Peat. His website is pretty amazing. It's kind of hard to understand because there's a lot of biochemical biology research. One little article, it's like 5 pages, but it's worth it to really know the base of how do we create energy at the cellular level and at the mitochondria, and that's very interesting.
Oh, that is interesting. So we're kind of coming up on time here, but really quick, one of the questions I had for you, because you talked about this earlier about supplements, right? 20 years ago, it was all supplements, it was a new thing, whereas now it's so saturated. And I think you kind of agree with me. Supplements aren't a magic pill. They're not the key to your success, but there are some places where maybe some supplements would benefit like a professional athlete or someone trying to lose weight. But if you did recommend any supplements, which ones would you think would be the most beneficial or the most bang for your buck in today's society?
But what I like is very close to the body nature. Like I was introduced to ASEA about 5 years ago, and it's basically salt water with an electrical compound, and it mimics almost like the water from the waves. Basically, water our body is made 77, 78%, and it's basically redoxing molecule. What we lose in our body is the connection between the cells, and what we found with ASEA product, it increased that connection in between the cellular system. Basically, when you're 5 years old, if you bang your knee, you're going to have a little bruise. You're going to heal very, very quickly because in between the cells, there's a very, very quick connection. As we get older, it tends to take longer because we lose that connection. Basically, what we found, that's why our athletes taking ASEA, the recovery is way faster. And also the level of L-glutathione, it's not in the product. A good product, Drew, is what it's going to increase your own product in your body. We have everything in our body to sustain very long. All the research have shown we should be on Earth for about 120, 125 if we activate properly what we have in. A good supplement will create an environment for your own L-glutathione or antioxidant to get delivered in your body, not the opposite. Like anything on earth, if you take caffeine pills, you'll have the jitter. If you take a good coffee like organic, you will not have the jitter, because with all the enzymatic and all the it's like a collaboration in between all the cells. You will feel better. You will have more energy, but it's your own energy that you increase. It's not from external. And this is the key. That's why basically I only use ASEA. I used to have like 2-3 colds a year for the last 5 years. I may even have one and not even. I mean, I had cat's allergy. We used the product in our eyes. A lot of my athletes, they use the gel. It's called Renew 28. It's pretty interesting. And for me, it's proofed like for drug testing, because most of my athletes, they get drug tested, and it's just basically salt water. And I love it for that. It does the job of very high level for my high level athletes, and they all love it without having to take like tons of supplements and pills. Sometime if you live in Northern Hemisphere, some vitamin D3 could help. Some research have shown like in the liquid. But outside of that, we don't really take anything else outside of if you eat well. One of the key components is to reduce inflammation. It's also bone broth. People, all my athletes, they buy these organic bones from chicken to any type of, like you get beef. This week I made some lamb. You cook them for 6-7 hours. You get just the juice out. You keep it in the fridge and makes like a nice gelatin. It becomes a base for a lot of stuff you could eat. Like tonight, that's what I'm having for dinner. My son is in the playoffs in hockey. That's where we're going in the arena. He's going to have a nice bone broth with a bit of veggies to prepare him for the game, and with a bit of turmeric and a bit of ginger in it. Then that's going to be an amazing meal. He's going to be all fueled up, and hopefully he's a goalie. He's going to stop every puck that comes to him.
So that's awesome. So you got your kid eating the same types of foods that you eat, right? You fuel him just like you do your other athletes. Okay.
Yeah, that's very important.
Yeah, and I'm kind of the same mentality. I have 2 little girls, 6 and 4, and people are like, well, what do you do? Like, do they eat like the spinach and the kale and the broccoli? I'm like, yeah, if they don't eat what I eat, they're going to go hungry. And to this day, I don't know of any kid that has died from starving themselves of not eating the food their parents have in the house, right?
It's a gift for them. I mean, our job as parents is to elevate them. It's to help them to become better humans. And that's the best gift we could give them, is through nutrition. That's the best gift, to teach them how to cook and prepare food. In the old days, everybody was in the kitchen. From the age of 3, 4, 5 years old, they all had to do something.
Yeah. That's great. That's great advice. And just getting back to the supplements that you mentioned, I agree that most of the stuff, the nutrients and the vitamins, the minerals, you can get from natural foods, natural sources, first and foremost. And I think that sometimes people think, well, if I take this supplement, it's going to help me out. It's like, if you can just change your habits first and change your relationship with food, that's going to benefit you so much more in the long run. But for some people's education, some people are like, well, what's bone broth? Where do I buy that? Or, turmeric or ginger, those kinds of things aren't in the Western diet, right? They're not in the American diet.
Then Drew will put it on your blog. That's not a problem. I have tons of recipes. I'll send you. I got tons of recipes. It's going to be my pleasure for you. We're there for that. That's why we're on the phone today from Hawaii to Montreal.
Yeah, man.
Our job is to help people make better choices. And we've been doing it I've been doing it for 33 years. And it's fun. I see my young athletes and my older athletes, and they perform good and they have fun. And my regular clients too. They train like athletes, and they need to recover. And gotcha. That's the key.
Okay, just to wrap up here really quick, Paul, I just want to ask you some rapid fire questions that are kind of fun and easy to answer. Then we'll tell everyone where they can find you. But the first question I had is, what's one supplement that is overused today that is so common that people can just get rid of, that they don't need to take?
Well, protein powders. Okay. It's like most of it is like, wow. It's like that's the... And all these fat burners, please don't. And for kids, please don't take these, I don't want to name, but these energy drinks. Don't do that. Like any type of, that's brutal. Okay. But for the average Joe, protein powders are useless. Don't use that. You're wasting your money for that.
Gotcha. Yeah, maybe like the occasional smoothie here and there, but
Oh yeah,
mostly,
yeah. I mean, again, a supplement means that let's say you're on the run,
yeah.
you're going somewhere. It's okay, but that's why we call it a supplement. It's not like
Yes, not a
it's not your
replacement.
main. It's not the main. It's a supplement.
Okay. Have you ever been overweight in your life, Paul? Have you always been kind of in
Never.
shape? Okay.
No.
So most people know me because of my Fit to Fat to Fit journey,
Yeah.
you know, what I did and what I learned from it. And obviously it was crazy. So let me ask you this. Ask each guest on the show, would you ever do a Fit to Fat to Fit journey to show people that you could get back in shape as a challenge?
It's very hard for me because I was a wrestler all my life.
Uh-huh.
It's very hard for me to put on. I'm kind of these we call that brown fat freaks.
Yeah.
Like I'll be 55 soon. I have about like 6% body fat.
Oh my
And
gosh.
yeah, always like. And I mean, it's kind of a very, but I mean, I guess it's all the anaerobic training I've done when I was like from the age of 6 years old to now. I still train like that, and it would be. I tried for a certain type, like in my bodybuilding, and it's very hard for me to put on fat. I tried
Yeah.
with ice cream and stuff, and it's like almost impossible. It's kind of it freaks my wife's out. But that's kind of a part of my genetic.
Yeah, well, you're very lucky and very fortunate to have those types of genetics. Because me,
Yeah.
I grew up wrestling as well, and I remember we would starve ourselves to make weight, and
Yeah.
then we had an hour to eat as much as we could before a
Yeah.
match. And my body retained so much, and so for me, it was easy to put on 75 pounds in 6 months, which was surprising. So that's really interesting. So you're saying even if you tried, you probably couldn't.
Yeah,
do
it was very hard for me to even move categories when I was wrestling. They had a hard time with that.
Interesting.
I was
man.
putting on muscle, but it was very hard to put on a lot of weight, like fat wise, especially.
Okay, so let's throw that out of the question. But let's say when you do eat something that's unhealthy, you splurge. It's your birthday, your kid's birthday, or something. What's one food that you know is not healthy that you'll splurge on just because it tastes so good?
I mean, I always loved ice cream. Ice cream doesn't like me that much because I'm part native, and natives we don't deal well with. But that would be ice cream once in a while. But you get like it being an ex wrestler, you get so used to feel good and have
Yes.
energy. And in our work, I mean, dealing with high-level athletes, I need to be on all the time, and I'm not getting younger. And I don't like to – I think for me, I have a very high respect to my body and nature. I've spent so much hours and years. For me, a good meal is like a nice sushi or a nice fish or something like it's well prepared. For me, I love good wine. I don't
Okay,
drink a
yeah.
lot, but I have like organic wine. For me, it's like that. My splurge would be like a nice espresso coffee at night with a nice bottle of wine or good organic meat mix. That's for me. That's the splurge.
Gotcha. Okay, that's cool, man. Okay, so you've worked with a lot of athletes. Who's one athlete nowadays that you would just love to work with? That you're like, man, if I could help you out so much. Who's one athlete you would love to work with?
Oh, there's so many. I mean, I can't mention names, man. But I mean,
Okay.
there's so many. As a posturologist,
Yeah.
I just started with I can't mention his name, but he's very
okay.
high prominent pro hockey player that just in 2 sessions we already see a big difference. I had the chance to work with some of the top like MMA champs and it's so much fun. Like again, when you understand really the postural system, you could help anyone, and it's so much like within 1 or 2 sessions you see the difference like you could make, especially
Yeah.
in the NFL, the way they're trained. This is where we have the highest impact. Pretty much everything is sagittal plane, and we because of hockey, it's a lot of transverse plane, horizontal plane, and changing direction, a lot of eccentric movement, and it's all about timing because skating is very hard.
Yeah.
When you adapt that system of training throughout competitive sport, you make a huge impact.
Yeah. Okay. Last question. What is your?
But one guy to answer now that
Okay.
Tiger Woods would be fun. Tiger, I work with the David Ledbetter Golf Academy. I'm going there next week in Orlando, and if there's one guy that I know I could help, would be Tiger Woods.
Okay.
Yes, I know it.
Thank you. Awesome. Okay, last question here. What's one of your guilty pleasures, Paul? Like whether it's a TV show, a series, an app on your phone, something where you just like let yourself unplug and not focus on anything. Is there a guilty pleasure you have?
I mean, I work so much that like I like to listen to music, but my number one guilty, I don't feel like it's guilty pleasure.
Okay.
I always listen to Howard Stern for the last 25 years. And I love that guy. No one makes me laugh as much as that. And I mean, for me, like it's actually 29 years this year.
Oh
and
my gosh.
And my wife, because she doesn't understand that much English, her main language is French, like most of us in Montreal. And she goes nuts, but she turns around because she sees me cracking up all the time, laughing and she knows that, like, he must be happy because he's she has no clue what they're talking about. But this is again, it's not even a guilty pleasure because I don't feel guilty, but I love it.
Gotcha. I haven't listened to him in like 10, 15 years maybe. I didn't know he was still on.
He's on Sirius.
Okay.
He's on like that's why I mean, for me, great interviews and amazing. The delivery, it gets me. I mean, humor is very personal.
Yeah.
Some people would like Don Rickles, others would like Sam Kinison. I mean, for me, this is the kind of humor, and also he's a genius. His delivery, he put up that kind of team. It's amazing.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Paul, so much for coming on. Before we go, where can people find you, connect with you on social media? So if you're on social media and your websites.
My website is posturalsportsperformance.com.
Okay.
And I mean, you could give my email is paulgagne.psp@gmail.com if you want directly. It's the same on my website. You'll have it, paulgagne.psp for Postural Sports Performance @gmail.com. If you have any questions, I'm very happy to answer.
Awesome. We'll put that in the show notes. And then do you do social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, any of that, or no?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook, everywhere. Like Instagram, not that much. We're remodeling. I'm kind of the older school.
Yeah.
But I have people in charge of that. I speak better than I write.
I totally get it. Social media is a different beast. It's a different animal. It's hard to know how to navigate through it. So I get it, man. But Paul, I just want to say thank you so much. I learned so much from you coming on. We'll have to have you back on again in the future.
Anytime, Drew. My pleasure. And
if you're ever out here in Hawaii, you let me know. We'll go surfing. Yeah. And I'll let you know if I'm up in Montreal.
If you need my advice for your TV show, you let me know, and I'll be very happy to put like some of my pro athletes through torture.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Paul.
My pleasure, Drew.
We'll talk to you soon. Bye. Okay, I hope you enjoyed today's episode with Paul Gagne. I know I did. I learned a ton from this episode, and I'm going to have to go visit Canada now to go work with this guy. He's definitely very interesting. Once again, our show sponsor is Kegenix. Use my code FIT for 15% off if you want to experience what it's like to be in a state of ketosis within 60 minutes of taking it. Use my code FIT for 15% off. If you guys want to stay in the know, please follow me on social media at Fit2Fat2Fit on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat even. I'm on there. Check me out. You can sign up for my newsletter at fit2fat2fit.com to kind of stay in the know as far as upcoming events and things that are happening in the Fit2Fat2Fit world. We appreciate all you guys' support. Please leave us a review on iTunes. Please share this podcast with your friends. We really appreciate it. We promise to deliver high quality content every single week. And we hope you guys will come back next week for another great episode. We'll see you guys later. Bye.